We have the question from SS, which I'm sure stands for Sweet Susie. It says, why does Jason say we shouldn't name the puppies? Well, because your focus is in the wrong place. It's that simple. You are not a character in their story. They, in our story, as individuals, can choose what kind of person they want to be. Do they want to be neutral toward us, not cause us any harm as an individual, not as an entire group? We're not going to anthropomorphize an entire group. Do they want to support white well-being as individual? Or do they want to be anti-white? Because if they want to be anti-white, and usually the people who ask this question about why don't you just focus on this other group of people with every minute of your day, why don't you just look at them and be in their story and call yourself by the names that they give their bad guys, and then act like you have your finger on them? They're not going to trick you, when in reality, they're chumping your ass like a pimp in a pink Cadillac with pink fur on the dash, mismatching red shiny shoes, and a big pink fedora with a purple feather sticking out the top. That's how bad they chump people who think that they've figured them out all right. Because then these people go out into the world being in their story, call themselves, as I say, by the names of the bad guys in their story, and then confirm with their behavior what the anti-white narrative says about people who care about whites, who care about our future, who care about our children. Now, I'm willing to bet, Sweet Susie, that you don't actually think all of the things that the bad guy in the anti-white narrative thinks, right? You don't want to exterminate whole populations of people. You don't want to track down innocent non-white people and victimize them. You don't want to like murder non-white. All of this is what the population believes about those who are focusing on this group and in their story and playing the bad guy in the anti-white narrative. So that's the beginning. That's where we start. And that's a colossal place. But I'll just ask you this. If you are one of these people who think that, they are just irrevocably always going to be anti-white. They're always going to be anti-white. If you're of that mindset, well, then haven't you, if you got your finger on anybody who's anti-white, then aren't you capturing everybody who's anti-white with that designation? Aren't you stopping and noticing everybody who's anti-white then? There is no excuse. So then you have that. You have the other fact that we don't condemn anybody for an immutable characteristic. We don't want to be condemned for our immutable characteristic, being Westman. And white people, we need, if we're going to believe in something strongly enough to live and fight and maybe kill and maybe die for something, we need to believe it is objectively moral. It needs to fit into a moral framework. That's just the way we are. So you're not going to be able to condemn an entire group of people for the way they're born while claiming that you don't want to be condemned for the way that you were born. So it's immoral to do so. That's another reason. A third reason is that when you focus on this other group of people, this is the old paradigm. So it fits with the puppies, it fits with the Catholics, it fits with all of this old paradigm garbage. And the belief was, with the old paradigm, was, and this is what I'm having, and we all now are having such a hard time trying to shift away from, is that you tell everybody, as many people as you can, this is to do something good for the white race, to do something good for our countries. What you do is you tell everybody out there about the group or groups. What are some of the other ones that they said? What is that group inside the Catholics that for a while people were saying, oh, it's got to be that group or whatever. So you go out to the world and you tell everybody about whatever group it might be. And then you tell them about, you list all of the great crimes that they've committed. You give all of the names behind these people, the ones that are doing it, these ideas, these activities out in the world. You give all of their names, all of their great crimes. You tell people, either directly or indirectly, how omnipotent, how all-powerful that group is, how omniscient, how they just know everything that's going on. And then, by way of this old paradigm, you have a moment of God of the gaps. The God of the gaps here is that somehow magic. And then there is resistance and you overcome the problem people. And then, as sort of like an afterthought or an after effect, white people are benefited by it. That is such brain dead, horse ass nonsense. It has never worked. Much brighter people than the ones who are doing this today employed that paradigm and failed. It still fails. It fails the test of reason, logic, and evidence. It fails the test of morality. It fails in every way. The God of the gaps, there is no magic. They just say somehow, whatever party were, the Jesuits or the Puppies or the what, this or that, somehow they're defeated because somehow everybody now knows. And of course, where's the problem there? Everybody has a lifetime of being accessed by the regime's media. They have you for minutes. Literally, even if you're regularly preaching to them, they have you for minutes of their life. But the vast majority of people are only going to have you for a couple minutes, and they have their lifetime with the anti-white regime. You are not going to convince them in those minutes of something to overcome the lifetime that they are receiving of education and whatever else you want to call it, edutainment, that they're getting, the anti-whiteism from the regime. You're not going to overcome that. The only people you're going to reach are people who are already in the sphere. And you're just then trying to educate them on what you think is a more precise source. It changes nothing. By also either outright saying or implying that the group, because they must be all powerful to be able to do all of these things, or all knowing to be able to do all of these things, you have also engendered great fear in them, in your audience. How can you take on something that is all powerful? How can you take on something that is all knowing? Another great failing of this old and incorrect. Not only is it an old paradigm, an antiquated, wizened, useless, failing paradigm. So you also do this. The people you go to who are not already in the white positive sphere, our brothers and sisters out there, when you tell them, the ordinary white folks with normal sensibilities, when you tell them that there's a great omniscient, omnipotent power out there that wants to destroy Western kind, Western civilization, or not even specifically, because these people who focus on these different groups, Puppies or Jesuits or whatever, that's it. They're just talking, they're talking about, well, they're harming the world. They're harming everybody. When you do that, you don't engender in the minds of your audience the desire to unite with other white people. What you engender in a group, Western kind, who is predisposed to individualism, is a desire to flee the wrath of the said group, a desire to side with the said group to try to somehow save their own ass, to save their family from what you've just convinced them is going to be done to them because of their race or because they're not part of said group or whatever it is. So I could just go on and on about how deleterious it is to go out to the world and be in somebody else's story. And that's all you're doing when you focus on them. You have to focus on us. If you focus on us, if you focus on the love for us, you will defend us against all who would transgress against us. And let me tell you, that will capture every single person and every single group who will transgress against us, who will want to victimize us. Not only that, but in the new paradigm that I have created here and that we all are building and going free, in the new paradigm, there is no God of the gaps moment. There is no moment where you have to say, well, we don't know what happens in this moment, but something must happen, because after it, then somehow we magically have overcome the objectionable group. So this is why we focus on Western kind and being in our own story rather than focusing on some other group and being in their story.